Hi everybody! In this video I'm going to show you how to make a knit pullover, but for this tutorial you don't need to knit, you're just sewing. I hope you enjoy this tutorial. For sewing this pullover you need some knit fabric, and I used some quite thick fabric. Lay the fabric double and put a pullover which you want to use as your pattern on top of the fabric. Don't wonder, this green pullover is the same as the grey one. Then fold in your sleeves so that you just have the middle part of the pullover as pattern, and pin everything in place. And then cut around your pullover, and don't forget the seam allowance. So now you have the front and back piece cut out together. But if you want to have a high-low pullover like me, then you need to cut out the front piece a little higher than the back piece. And you also want to cut the front neckline a little lower than the back. And then you need to sew both sides together and hem the bottom. When the fabric frays a lot like mine, you should use a French seam. Therefore you place the fabric's wrong sides together and pin everything and sew it together. Then you want to turn the fabric to the left side so that the right sides are facing, and then you pin everything together again. And now you sew the same part again, and using a little more seam allowance than before. So when using a French seam, you have a regular seam from the outside, but inside the fringes are caught by the seam, so nothing will fray. Next you want to cut out the sleeves, and therefore you place the fabric double again, and then just try out how wide the sleeves are. Then you fold another layer of fabric again, and then you have 4 layers of fabric so that you can cut out both sleeves together. Then pin the sleeve of your pattern pullover in place and fold over the pullover so that you have the seam of the sleeve, and then cut around the sleeve with seam allowance, of course. And if you like, you can cut the sleeves a little longer than the original ones. And then you just need to sew along the straight line on the bottom of each sleeve. And because you don't want the seam to fray, you're again using a French seam where you face the left sides together first so that you can see the right side from the outside. Pin everything in place and sew. For all these seams you can just use a straight stitch. Then again turn the fabric to the left side so that the right sides are facing, and then sew along the same line but using a little more seam allowance than before. Next you want to sew in the sleeves again with a French seam. On my pullover the upper part of the sleeves is part of the neckline, and so I didn't sew all the way around, but there was an opening which I left. So if you have a similar pullover, you're not sewing in a circle, but maybe just 240 degrees or so. When sewing the sleeves to the rest of the pullover, you need to be careful that you put both existing seams on top of each other. Next you want to turn everything again to the left side, that you have the right sides facing together. And then you want to sew all the way around again, and using again a seam allowance which is a little wider than before. And again you should be careful that you put both seams on top of each other. And if you're done with that, your work already looks like a pullover and you just need to hem the sleeves, the bottom and the neckline. I started with the sleeves and just folded the sleeves double and then just sewed all around with a zigzag stitch. You also want to fold the bottom hemline double. And then you sew again using a zigzag stitch, but a straight stitch would be also fine. Because at the top hemline there are already 4 crosswise seams, I decided to take a leftover piece of fabric and just sew a circle out of it. And then I folded in both sides double and then put it on the neckline and pinned it in place. And I did that all the way around the neckline. And then you want to sew all the way around again using a zigzag stitch. And now your pullover is ready to wear for the cold winter. Have fun with it! I also hope you enjoyed watching my video and maybe you like to sew this pullover as well. And I would also be very happy if you subscribe to my channel, leave me a comment or give me a thumbs up. I hope to see you soon again. Bye!